Hello and welcome to another episode of Tech Time Today. I'm your host, Jeff Welpley, and today we're going to talk about an potentially interesting way that you can run two or more different web apps on the same domain. So if you go to foo.com, it actually can, depending on the route that you're going into, be two completely separate web apps on two completely different services, two different cloud providers, like everything else different, except for the fact that they're all stitched together on the same domain. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of what I relatively recently, for GetHuman, which is the company that I work for. And it should just take 10 minutes or so. It's a relatively simple thing, but I do find it interesting. It's something that in the past I didn't realize was possible. And I think should be useful to you. If you like what we talk about today, definitely like the video, hit the subscribe button. I'm going to be trying to come out with videos every day for the next 30 days, little short pieces of hopefully interesting content like this. And definitely let me know what you think about it in the comments. Thanks. Okay, so the first step and the thing that to show you, which I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share. Sorry, took me a second to do that. Okay, so what I'm showing you first is, and there's many different approaches for doing what I'm talking about, and there's many different variations. I'm just going to be going over one thing that worked for us, and I think you can duplicate pretty easily. So the first thing is at the sort of start of the process, which is, we have everything hosted on one domain. So this is actually our test domain, gethuman.co, not gethuman.com. But the same idea, and we are using in Cloudflare. So we do our run our domains on Cloudflare, and so it has our DNS. So when you are going to a website, so if in your browser you're typing in gethuman.com or gethuman.co in this case, or following it from a link, it will first go to Cloudflare, and Cloudflare, the DNS will figure out where to route that request. One awesome thing that Cloudflare has are these concept of edge workers. So these are little pieces of JavaScript that you can write to handle the request in different ways. Usually it's something you want it to be you don't want it to be a huge piece of code, because it's something that has to have like high throughput. There's literally millions of these requests going on, on a daily, weekly basis here. So it has to be fast. It has to be pretty simple. It has to be almost virtually error-free. So in this case, because what we're talking about is we're trying to split the traffic between, I'm doing it between two sources. You could theoretically do it through many different sources. And so what I'm doing here is, I'll explain in a second later on why I'm doing it for two different routes here. So I actually have, originally, I had it so that it was just everything /phone. So gethuman /phone, and below anything, so /phone / anything else besides that. But just to show an example, you could do multiple routes. I also added in /foo, which isn't we don't really use that. But I just want to demonstrate that you can do multiple folders. And so I'm saying basically, if it's any of these special paths, then I want to actually change the destination. So that the destination is, I want it to actually go to this other. This is a subdomain. So the user doesn't see this subdomain, but this is something that within the Cloudflare DNS, I'm not going to show you that because then it has some like proprietary information of like the specific location for some of our servers and that type of thing. But within the DNS, it has the actual routing of the default, like for the main gethuman.co, where those are routed. But then I'm saying for these subpaths, I want it routed to a different place. So in the DNS, the location for gethuman, ghweb.gethuman.co, which will be a different one, it sends it there. So this is the sort of main trick to start for how you would take one domain, but then split that traffic, in this case, to two different web apps. And so these two web apps could be completely different technologies. Like they can be in no relation whatsoever to each other. Or you could do, obviously, it's very easy to extrapolate this to do many different ones. This is a really, really useful approach when you have a legacy code base that you're not going to be able to convert right away, and you want to like slowly kind of incrementally move to a new technology stack. I mean, that's the use case, the reason why we're doing it. There's probably other use cases as well, I would imagine, but it is a really useful thing for that. Okay, so that's the initial part. And now I want to show you a little bit of in our code base of, so once it goes to the default path, which goes to your legacy code base, I'm not going to show you that because that could be anything. And that part doesn't have to care about that. It doesn't have to care about anything. I mean, it's just the legacy code base that's been working all along that just doesn't worry about these other parts here. But the subpaths, this other app, this new with a new technology, you do have to do a couple tricks. So I'm going to share again. Hold on a second. And okay, here we go. So we use an Angular app, the latest version of Angular for all of our new stuff. And so one tricky thing, so there's a couple tricky things. One tricky thing is that if you want to have this new app utilize any route, so like, so in our routes, so we have, I just as an example, I added like a /foo, but /phone test /phone, whatever, /phone. So it has all this new stuff, right? And it's one thing if it was all the same subfolder. So if you didn't have this /foo and it was just phone test, phone call, phone, whatever, if everything was phone, then it would be actually like super easy. You would just in your Angular JSON set your base href to /phone, and then basically it'll mount your app on that subfolder. And I mean, it's like super, it just works out of the box. Like there's no problems whatsoever. I mean, it's kind of built into how Angular works, and it's a very common use case. The thing that's harder is if you're trying to do these multiple paths, because ultimately, in order to do this, your base href has to be the root. You have to be the root because you have to be able to access both of these, right? But that doesn't really work because if in, I don't want to switch back right now, but if you go like the main thing is because of your assets. So in your assets that get built, oh, there. So robots.txt and so if normally you would have them, your /image directory or whatever. And so you would have to go to gethuman.com/image. But the thing is, when you go to /image, that isn't one of those subfolders that are owned by this app. It's owned by the other legacy app. So you're going to have a problem. You have to put it under something. So the trick is to put it under one of your subfolders that is under the control of this separate app, like when you do split your traffic to the two different apps. And so we're using both /phone and /foo are owned by this new app. So you could put it under either one, or you could create a third one if you want to, whatever. But you basically try to put all of your assets there and make your references there. And that's easy enough for the static apps that you can control in your Angular JSON. But during the Angular build, it will actually build your main.js and polyfills.js and your styles CSS. And by default, it'll put it in the root. It won't put it in the this subfolder for you to use. And so this is like a total hack that I added just to be able to get this to work. So basically, it's two things. So one is actually it's this one. So move files. So it's basically moving. This is the default path where it's putting everything. So this in this location, to get access to the main.js that gets built by Angular, you would have to go to gethuman.com/main.js, which isn't accessible because we can only access one of the subfolders. So we basically move all of those into a distribution subfolder, /phone, right? So now I can access through phone. But then you also have to modify the index CSS. And so again, this is just like a total hack. But as part of my script, I use sed, which is a command line tool with Linux and Mac, and I'm guessing Microsoft probably has a similar thing, to basically replace where it's just referencing in the index the styles.cs to be phone/styles.css. So with these combination of things, let me just switch back. Hold on. Okay. And okay. So with these combination of things, so if I go to my test page, so phone/test, and I view the page source, you'll see that it does have, sorry. That it does have the /phone/main.js, which we had changed it to. And you can certainly access, the actual JavaScript there. So that sort of wires everything together, and that allows it so that, just to see the transition. So I'm on right now. It's a little bit smaller. So right now I'm on the legacy app. So this is built-in AngularJS, if you can believe it. Still runs and is still super fast and pretty robust. But yeah, we are starting to, or we have been replacing with Angular stuff. So if we, for example, let me go to, so this page is still the legacy side. But once I click on this button, it'll seamlessly transition to the new app. Actually, one thing, I guess here's one other thing, is that you do have to watch out for doing client side navigation versus server side redirects. So obviously, if you are in one app or the other and you do a client side navigation, it doesn't go back to the server, it won't work. You do have to force the browser to go back to the server. And that's just a matter of making sure that you enter in the full path with the link, and or that it does like a redirect instead of a navigate. But in this case, so I won't go through the whole thing for this. This is this new app that we've been building or whatever. I'm just gonna shut that down. But basically, this is still the new app. I'm just going to do done, and then once I hit this done here, so we're on the new app now. You could see /phone/called, so it's in under that /phone subdirectory. Once I hit it done, it's going to go back to the legacy app, and that was quick and easy, but it's just another transition, just like the last one. So that's how that works. Hopefully that was somewhat interesting and helpful, and would love to hear what you guys think. I'll add some links and information in the description below. Great to thank you very much for watching to the end, and look forward